I'm at 4709 Briar Knoll Drive in Dayton, Ohio, doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. We're looking for any structural issues, anything that may be of concern to the buyer. It could be root intrusion based off the age of the house. We have cast iron below the floor here, and this is PVC has been replaced for a lot of it, and there's also some copper, but for the clean out, a little sump discharge here that goes back into the sanitary for this little drain here. But that would mean that there's probably clay past, like once we exit the house, it'll probably turn to clay. There's an outside clean out that is PVC. But we're going from this so that we can inspect more of the line. The exterior PVC is visible to the left of the front door, facing the house, and that is a sweep, or it forces me to only go downstream. So we're going from here so that we can inspect the entire main line going out. So cast iron in here. The house was built in the 60s. This is normal, and then again should find clay. Once we exit the house, it should switch over. Cast iron is a common material for this age, but it looks like this has possibly been descaled based off of how well the circle, or how well the pipe is kept its actual overall shape. See the line sweeping in there from the right, but normally when you have cast iron at this age, usually has it's all ugly. You have a lot of rust, just for obvious reasons because of the material. But then sometimes they'll come through and descale it, and that way you get it back to its original shape, and to keep some of the rough edges down. A lot of times you'll have kind of like channeling in the center. It's pretty common, but in this case you don't really know how much life is ever left in a cast iron pipe, because you can't tell how thin or thick the pipe walls are. This all looks really good though. It's all wide open, so we're looking for any obvious like holes or breaks, but this all so far looks really good. It's all okay. It's all keeping shape well. And this is what I was kind of talking about. You have a little bit of a build up there, and a lot of it does happen right here. Like you can see, there's a pipe connection coming in from the right. And that's kind of what happens is some of the connections, if they carry a lot of flow, they kind of make that channel that I was just talking about as it comes through, more because of like mineral deposits and stuff that kind of create an edge. And then once they do that, as you can tell, that white stuff is probably grease from either kitchen sink, or same line would be the dishwasher, but also you have a washer with the liquid fabric softener, can also leave like an oily substance similar to like a greasy substance. But no, this all looks really good, especially for cast iron. So I think I'm right here. If you look at the top of the pipe, you can kind of see an opening, just to know kind of what I'm looking at here. But this is most likely the clean out, either just before it exits the house or just after it did, and then we should be switching over to clay in a minute. It could stay cast iron, but in most cases it does switch over to clay. That was an interior clean out, and then we have the exterior clean out right here. You can see you can see how it switches over to PVC, probably just for the duration of the clean out, but we'll see. PVC didn't come out until well after the house was built, so obviously this was added at a later date. And then it switches over to clay, which is what we expected. I did see some evidence on the outside clean out of some cleanings. usually when they clean, it'll kind of wear away a little bit, especially with PVC. It'll kind of wear away a little bit at the opening, the clean out where you screw the cap into, just from the spinning of the cleaning head. So there is some water running. I believe the dishwasher is running, and so hopefully that'll discharge fully. You can see it going down, and then hopefully on the way back we'll be able to see a lot better, since we're not plowing stuff up in front of the camera head as you do on the way out. But if I need to, I can access the outside clean out and put a standoff on the camera to get it up out of this so we can take a look. Most of these, as you can see, that camera lens is only about a ½ inch off the bottom of the pipe, so it doesn't take much water to kind of to obscure the view. And so with the water running at the same time, you have stuff like this. You have some solids in the line because it's been used recently. Sometimes it'll just kind of hold up, create just a little bit of water to fill up just enough to cover the lens of the camera. I also noticed a tree out by the street that looked like it would have been right over top of the sewer line. So would not be surprised to see some root intrusion as we get down closer to the street, as we get further out. And that's probably why there is evidence of some cleaning that were done. So far the line looks great. Structurally it's holding shape. I haven't seen any issues with the connections. But to have a little bit of root intrusion would not be surprising. You can see there that connection isn't very, very tight. It's pushed up against itself, but those connections are rather large. So it is still within the connection, but it looks like there's some root intrusion there. And then it looks like we're switching over into PVC again. And it looks like if you see the scrape marks there on the sides, it looks like this was recently cleaned. It's evidence of like a cutter head going through there. At least that lets you know that it was done well, that they used a big enough attachment for the machine that it allowed them to scrape the entire edge of the pipe. Okay, I think we are off the property now. Let's switch back over. It's like based off of it looked like this part right here is all cast iron again. It's weird. It's just kind of hard to tell because of the buildup on the pipe walls. Could be actually. This could be SDR. It could be green. I see the green tint to it. It could be green PVC, and it's just a cover on it, but I don't think so. It's like. Got the layer on it. We'll have to get a look at this connection better. It just has a layer of debris on it, so it's hard to tell what that pipe material is. It doesn't look like concrete. Concrete would have been common out in the street. Plus it could be clay, just a different age of clay, different type that's sometimes the color is more white than red, but most of it looks like what we saw previously with the red tint to it. But as you can see, with just the buildup of like mold and stuff all over the pipe, hard to tell what material that is. I think it is still clay, just a lot lighter version of clay. But we should be getting really close to the main here. We might have gone in right at the flow line, and that's why I'm so far underwater. If we are in the main, obviously it would be holding a lot more water if we were in the main. I'm going to keep pushing until I can see something here. Okay, so that was just a pretty large belly. And we are in the main now. You can see all the stuff flowing by. We're being disturbed by the water that's being pushed out of that connection. So yeah, looks like that the last footage was all clay, and so the good news is I believe that would be off the property. We're going to check that at the beginning and end of that belly. Most of the time, bellies don't cause a major issue. The water will just overtake it. I didn't see a whole lot of like solid buildup or anything like that in the line, so that would be good. But again, as we pull back, we're going to take note and mark the beginning and end of that. So we're at about 130 feet. That's where it started. And so I'm going to pause the video. We're going to locate exactly where this is so that we know whether or not it is on the property or off the property. And that would allow us to, hopefully, it'll be off the property, and the sewer department would be responsible if this ever caused any major issues. But we're going to pause the video again to get a mark. Okay, so this is out off the property. This is right by the sanitary main. It's like a high end in the middle of the cul-de-sac, and then the line's running down the center of the street, and we are just a couple feet off the main. So we are off the property. We are under the road, and so I believe from about 130 feet, and then as we pull back, we'll note the beginning of the belly, but I believe the entire belly is off the property. But I will check on both ends, and then I'll see if I can get if the access point outside is big enough for me to get a standoff on the camera and maybe get a better look. You can see we're already flashing clear. And so that belly was about 130, about 114, 113, say 112. So 112 to 130, it's about 18 feet in length. It's not, it doesn't look like it's holding any solids or causing any obstruction, but it is good to know where it is, which I was actually going to push back out. And I'm going to locate it, and just to be sure that both the beginning and end of the belly are off the property, and that would just be good to know for future reference, that this would be the responsibility of the sewer department. So I'm going to pause the video again and go outside and get another locate. Okay, so we're still at least 20 feet off the property. There is some water running in both bathrooms. We were doing some flow testing on it upstairs. So we're going to sit here for a minute and let this water level drop to the normal area. But the good news is, both of these, the high and low spots on this belly, or I'm sorry, the high side and low side on the belly, upstream, downstream, we're both way off the property, so not a concern for the buyer as far as cost if anything ever pops up with it. This is, like I said, bellies, there were no solid buildup or anything, and it is overtaking it pretty easily. So, as soon as this drops down a little further, we'll continue the inspection and finish pulling back. bellies are usually they're fairly common to find also, and usually they've been there pretty close to the age of the pipe. A lot of times it happens when they backfill on top of the pipe. Discharge, maybe somebody flushed the toilet or they're running a little bit of water. So, expect to see some flow going past us. The only other thing I come up with is that maybe a liner. But you can see the edge there. It doesn't seem like it. But it kind of looks like an old liner or something may have been done out there to try to maybe smooth the line out in case, like knowing that that belly was there, they may have done it from the main. This is probably about the beginning of that PVC, but they probably dug that up and lined it from that point. I think that's what that was a liner. And here at 73, 74 feet, this is where the root intrusion is, and I believe this was recently cleaned. And that's where probably have the biggest worry. It's about 74 feet. And so I am actually going to pause the video and I'm going to locate to see exactly where this is, to see how far onto the property this is. Okay, so 73, 74 feet we'll say. That's where the root intrusion is, and I believe that that's the main spot. It's pretty close to inline. They were coming across from left to right side of the property, and this is where it looks like there was a lot of root intrusion in this spot, and with it being recently cleaned, it is something that I would pay attention to, because you do have definitely have some separation here. In fact, I'm going to recommend that this be, I don't see anything major. You're definitely going to have to worry about the roots. And have those treated periodically. But I don't see anything that I don't see a bunch of solids sitting down in here, and we've just been running a lot of water, so it should be overtaking this a little bit. The connection is a little separated, and this is where we're getting roots in, probably due to that. And so I'm actually going to recommend that you just have another evaluation. Have somebody else evaluate the video. 74 feet. But that was the only spot in the entire line that looks like there's actually root intrusion either, and it's right next to the tree. The rest of the line looks great. See here where that outside clean out is. All the cast iron on the inside looks great. The only evidence of any cleaning done is actually on the exterior. And so I imagine that spot at 74 feet, it's 74 feet from here. I imagine that spot is what is causing the cleanings. Up here, coming out of the clean out. Okay, so we're all the way back. Well, basically what we have is the line overall structurally looks great. You have one spot at 74 feet that the connection is slightly pulled apart, not all the way, but that's where the joint is a little loose, so that's where you're getting the root intrusion. So that will be something that you will have to maintenance on a regular basis, roughly every. You could do a chemical treatment once a year. That's what I'm going to recommend at first, and then after the fact, I mean, you could have it rescoped in another 5 to 7 or 3 to 5 years and see how fast those roots are growing, if at all, while doing treatment. And that'll give you a good idea of a maintenance schedule going forward. There is also a belly from about 112 feet out to 130 feet. That is the entirety of that is off the property and out in the street. So that should be the responsibility of the sewer district to repair if it ever does become a problem. Right now it is not. It's open and flowing, and it didn't seem to be holding any solids or anything. But just for the sake of the buyer knowing that if that ever does become an issue, that should be the responsibility of the sewer department to repair, being as it is out in the cul-de-sac under the road. So, yeah, I'm going to note about the separation of 74 feet and the belly, and just probably recommend a second opinion as far as the evaluation of that area to make sure that they don't think it's anything serious. I don't. I think it could stay that way for years to come as long as you maintain the root intrusion. It should be okay. But other than that, like I said, the cast iron on the inside looked great, about as good as it could for its age, and the rest of the line looked good structurally, and it was open and flowing. So that'll end the inspection at 4709 Briar Knoll Drive in Dayton, Ohio.